Well, welcome everyone. I am so excited for today. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. So, in the meantime, drop in the comment section where are you joining us from? And we will get started very soon. And Happy New Year to everyone. And I'm going to introduce Elizabeth. We have some fun, candid conversations today. I know Elizabeth and I are joining from the somewhat sunny Bay Area, San Francisco, but would love to see where everyone's joining us from today. Just give a few seconds. San Francisco. Hi,
Yeah,
Alexandra.
we're just south of you, so don't know. It's not really sunny here. It's kind of cloudy, but
It is cloudy. Yes.
yeah.
It's not bright and sunny. It's not bright and sunny. I think I'm going to get started and ask people join in. Again, use the comment section to tell us where you're joining us from. Welcome to Kelowna, Canada. Yay. Um, Welcome to Product Power Play, a brand new LinkedIn live series where we host some incredible and inspiring industry leaders to uncover key inflection points that shaped their career in product and tech, all through some candid and some real conversations. And I am Baski Mukherjee, founder of PMDojo, where we help career professionals, especially from underrepresented communities, lots of women, working mothers, really get hired, make successful career pivots and career transitions, make more money, yay, and get promoted faster and smarter through some of our unique programs like Product Accelerator and coaching programs. And so let's dive in. And for our inaugural first episode, and I am feeling nervous today, it's my first one, I am so excited to welcome someone very special and truly exceptional, Elizabeth Ames. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi there. I really appreciate you inviting me to be here, and am so happy to talk to you today.
Thank you. Elizabeth has been a long time personal inspiration for me. And I know that I can talk about this, that, it resonates with so many other people too. She's held lots of leadership roles in companies such as Apple. She's currently the CEO of Women in Product, one of my favorite communities that I've been part of for years. And I am really excited to have this opportunity to chat with you, Elizabeth. I know we've been planning this for months and months and months, and finally the day is here. So let's dive in. And for all of you who are joining us today, again, thank you so much for taking the time. And if there are questions that come up, pop them on the comments section. There's going to be a small Q&A at the end, and we will love to take audience questions then. So cool. Calgary, Washington, pretty cool. Kelowna, awesome. So Elizabeth, let's start with your origin story.
Yeah.
Love to talk about origin stories. So can you maybe share a little bit about, your career journey and some of the most, big defining moments?
Yeah, I mean, I think my career has been, like so many people will say, not a straight line, right? I, uh, early in my career, to be honest, I just kind of stumbled into Apple. And people, this is way back, I'm giving you my age here. I was there when Steve was there originally, before he left and came back. So this is the Wayback Machine. But it was a really exciting place to be. I really stepped into it without completely knowing what I was getting into. But what I found there was really uh, the opportunity to take advantage of opportunities. It was very much a place where, oh, you did a good job at that. Can you do this, right? Can you take on that? And I just took on everything that was kind of thrown my way. And that gave me the opportunity to work on really important products with really brilliant people across the company, within engineering, within marketing, and I really just soaked that up. So that was kind of one really important lesson, career lesson for me, which is, take opportunities when they come, explore things that you don't know, be curious, right? Like I walked into an engineering organization without an engineering degree and without really any engineering knowledge, but I asked tons of questions and people answered them for me, right? And I learned a lot that way. Over time, I was at Apple for a long time, probably longer than I should have been. And I think I learned a lesson about, when should you leave? And what those next steps for me were, and trying to really suss out from that, like, what did I love about my experience there? And what did I not love about it in the end? And how did I make a transition into other opportunities? So, I mean, one of the things that I learned pretty early on was I really loved being in sort of startup-y kind of environments that were very entrepreneurial. Again, if you took chances, if you took on things, you could learn, you could grow, you could do all kinds of things. So I did end up spending the bulk of my career working mostly in startups, which I loved. But it's a tough environment, right? It can really burn you out, and you do have to learn how to think about each opportunity as it comes along. Is it something you really want? Is it something you're really interested in? Do you believe that the company's going someplace, right? And so started to get some analytical skills that were effective at thinking about where my career was going. And then I think I had a couple of really seminal moments where people got promoted around me and I didn't get promoted. In at first, I think that I was like a lot of people. I thought, well, if I just do a good job, people will recognize it. And I did have a lot of reinforcement to that early in my career. But at some point in time, you have to ask for what you want. And I definitely had a few seminal moments where I was pretty disappointed, and I got the chutzpah up to go and ask. And people said, oh, yeah, okay, since you asked, fine, right? And that really made me realize, like, you have to take control. You have to decide what you want. You have to ask for what you want. You have to understand what it takes to get what you want and advocate for yourself. So, I got the opportunity then late in my career to step over and work on the nonprofit side and work on causes that are important to me. And that's kind of how I landed where I am at Women in Product.
That is such an inspiring, wonderful story. And I know I've heard bits and bobs of it from you in the past, but I think just kind of hearing it again, it's incredible. You talk about finding the opportunity, you talk about advocating for yourself. And I think something we talk a lot in PM Dojo is also about, treating your career like a business. You make investment in it, you take small bets and educated bets, and you have to have that kind of a founder mindset and take that control and reign to yourself, right? Amazing, amazing. A follow-up question, Elizabeth, on that is, looking back, what was some of those big inflection points in your career? I know you talked about those seminal, moments, but those inflection points, and how did they change things for you? And what were some of the triggers that made you maybe decide to go in a certain way and let go of some other things?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think I've alluded to some of them. I think that really being forced to think about my experience at Apple and what I wanted and what I loved about it and what I didn't love about it in the end became really important to guiding me in the future. I think that one thing that all of these stories really have to do with being able to reflect on and take control of where you're going, right? Those are always kind of those key moments. And, for me, it was recognizing that I really loved startup environments, that I loved that energy. I loved building things. some of it was also, times where I ended up in places where things just seemed to drift, and I kind of had to, shake myself up and say, "What are you doing here? Time to, move along. Go find what you want." Um, I think those are the things that really stick out to me over time. Those were really those inflection points for me. And I think also the one thing that I would say, and I know this holds true for women, maybe it holds true for men as well. I'm not totally sure. I don't think I can speak from their standpoint, but I think that you have to think about your life holistically. Your work is a part of the total. And so there you have to be realistic about how much you're willing to invest in your work at different stages and how that plays out over time and how that time can be useful in ways that may not be obvious.
Mm,
Yeah.
really, really good. Really, really strong point. And so then what do you say about having it all? I think we've been, we've been hearing this since we are little about having it all, right? And I think what you're talking about is perhaps not so much.
Well, I think that that is maybe the wrong way of saying it, right? Because what is all? Um, so my comment would be, I think you should think about having what you want and what's important to you. Are you gonna have to make judgment calls about some things? Yeah, totally, right? Um, there were times in my life when my son was little that I consciously, took things that gave me more time with him. There are also times when I was in startups and I had to say to people, "No, I'm leaving because I have to go pick up a small child, but you can talk to me later, blah, blah, blah." And I worked around it. So you have to realize that you only have so many hours in a day and only so many days in a week. And you have to think about how you're going to balance the things that you want. There really aren't any free lunches. I just want to say that. And that phrase of like having it all implies that there is. Everybody has to make choices in their life. And I would just urge you to make those choices thoughtfully, right? I'm just going to go back and say Deb Liu, who is one of the founders of Women in Product and the CEO of Ancestry, you know, she talks a lot about how, having her children kind of kept her career from going forward as fast as it might have gone. But she doesn't regret that decision, right? Those were important decisions for her. And so I think people have to be realistic, but you can have the things that are important to you. Yeah.
100%. It's like a pie circle, right? Like you have to adjust the different slices, and you're going to still get a circle. And that's what the whole part of the holistic part of you as an individual is. I think I remember this quote. It was one of my managers who reminded me, I think when I was really struggling with balancing the two sides of my life, work and life. And she said, you have to eliminate to get clarity. And as hard as it sounds, I think it's really what you're also talking about, Elizabeth.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to say that I have learned from other women over time that there are ways to have the things that are important to you without in smaller doses maybe, or in different ways than you imagined. And so sometimes you have to step back and think about that a
Mm,
little bit, right? Like for me, things that I do separate from work and family are also really important to me. I love cooking, but I've learned that I do that in a certain way so that it fits into my life. It doesn't take over my life, right? I think
very
you
cool.
learn these little tricks over time.
um, so we're going to change the topic a little bit here, but still within the women realm. The question is, women in product has been now in existence for years. And since the beginning, what have you seen in terms of the representation of women in product management, especially at senior level roles? And the data is so disheartening when we look at it. We know 1 in 4 senior leaders is a woman. When we talk about women of color, I mean, that number just drops down to 1 in 16. So it's really bad. And there's all this conversation about, womanhood penalty and all of those. That was my talk in the last conference. I'd love to hear your perspective, Elizabeth, on this.
I think that there's good news and, not so good news.
Mm.
I think that women have made a lot of progress in the space. If you look at it at the, entry level of the job, it's pretty much 50-50, right? There are different paths that women tend to come into the field more so than men do, and vice versa. But it's relative parity at that entry level. That's where it starts dropping off though, right? So, at those, more mid-career roles, certainly at senior and executive roles, it declines. That is very much in keeping with what we see for women in tech in general. It's also what we see in general for women throughout the US workforce, right? It's not surprising that we see that. I think the thing that has surprised me over the last few years is that there are a lot of really high-powered, super capable, super competent women at the senior and executive level. A lot of the ones that are in product at those levels, you're seeing emerge as CEOs at different companies now. You're seeing that as a pathway into, the C-level and executive roles. The other thing is, but the thing that I see is there's quite a few of them out there, but they're not as visible. And so I really feel like to the extent that we can start making them more visible, which we try and do all the time, it will normalize it. People will go like, yeah, well, of course they are. And yeah, of course they're capable, right? So I think that is a big part of the challenge. But I also think we've been doing a lot of work around building connections between women that are at the executive level and at the senior level so that they know one another. They can recommend one another. They can, pull one another up a level. I think also arming them with more information about what it takes to get to those roles, how to think about their careers as they move through and try and move to that next level, et cetera. So we're doing a lot of work in those mid-career, senior, and executive levels. Those are really the levels that we focus on the most strongly, right? Trying to increase that participation at the higher levels.
Because then if you have role models, then the folks who are in the junior or the early career levels, they can kind of see them, right? And they can kind of like, okay, even I can do something like this in the coming years.
Well, that's a big motivator. The other thing is that there is quite a bit of data that says that women leaders tend to pull up women in underrepresented groups at a higher rate than others. So that helps also. Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. What advice would you? I know we talked about a lot of the mid-career and senior level women, and I know Women in Product is doing such amazing initiatives, with the peer circles and the executive coaching circles and all of that. And now, if we look at the folks, the women especially who are trying to get into product, especially the ones who might be coming from, let's say, non-traditional fields, we see a lot of questions coming from them. What advice would you like to give to them as they're thinking about entering this field?
I think my advice is, a couple of different things here. First of all, let me just say it's hard. So if you feel like it's been hard, you are correct. The easiest way for people to transition into the field is within the company that they're in. So either by, like, if you're in marketing, try and work your way over into a product marketing job, right? And then from there, you're going to interact more with the product managers and you can talk to them and you can express your interest and you can learn from them, et cetera. But moving within the company that you're in is almost always the best way to do it. But the downside, let me just say, is that once you get in there, you have to stay there for a little while. Like, you should stay in a product role in that company, some level of product role in that company for 3 years. I know that's like an eternity, but I will tell you that most companies, when they are hiring, they want to see somebody with 3 to 5 years of experience in the field before they'll consider hiring them. And it's insane, but it's true, right? So that's what I see. Um, I, certainly everything that you can do to understand the craft, build your skills, get experience with it will help you. Um, but really getting the on the job stuff is the big thing. Now, let me also say, because I know that there are people on the job market right now, and right now, it's tricky with tech companies because, as we've seen over the last year, all of the big tech companies all of a sudden discovered that they're public companies and their stock is not always doing great. And so, what do they do to improve their stock? They cut costs. So it's kind of a tricky market out there. It's not to say there aren't jobs. There are jobs. A lot of them are more at director level or higher, kind of interesting. But there are a lot of non-traditional companies. So we're seeing a lot more product jobs in financial institutions, in sort of media and entertainment environments, all kinds of companies that are going through what is generally referred to as a digital transformation, right? Could be retail as well. Um, and so there are jobs there, but they also have a little bit different level of uh, experience and expertise. So there may be trade-offs there, but there's good opportunities.
Now, this is spot on, Elizabeth. And I think if you think about from a product management standpoint, the job to be done, I think titles it's so agnostic. Sometimes you may find that what you're doing is very close to product work itself without really having the product management title. And so I think just being open to the scope, the breadth of the work, and not just look at the title, because that's kind of an interesting. But 100% agree with. I think the digital transformation area. I'm seeing a lot of opportunities there as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's kind of maybe look into the future now, and this is where I think there are a couple of questions. One, what are some of the changes or initiatives you see are necessary to increase the visibility? I know you talked about visibility just a few minutes back, but the visibility for the success of women in product and leaders. And what are some of the things that just absolutely need to happen to increase that visibility? What can companies do? What can we do? What can communities do?
I would say for companies and for people who are in the product space, whether they're running conferences related to product or podcasts or any of that, is do your homework, right? Like, don't just take the first name that comes up in a conversation of somebody who's going to be a speaker, right? There are lots of capable people and a lot of great women speakers. You may have to go look for them. You may have to be, like I said, you have to kind of do your homework. You have to go out there and be intentional about finding them, but they are there. So that's the one thing that I would say. The other thing is, to think about when you're within a company and you're going to ask somebody internally to speak related to something product, think about who you're asking and think about the composition of the people that you're putting up on stage. And I don't mean this from the standpoint of, like, as people so flippantly say these days, put somebody incompetent up on stage just because they're X or Y. No, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting, like, do your homework. There are people that are very capable of speaking to the things that you want to speak to that aren't necessarily the loudest voices in the room or aren't necessarily the people that you hang out with every day and that you may have to do a little work to find them. But they're there. They are there. So,
It's not the pipeline problem.
no, it's not.
What are some of the things they can do for the homework?
Well, I think, sometimes it's just as simple as looking at, who's spoken at different conferences about different topics or, you know, get into LinkedIn and look around and look for, people in organizations that are sort of at that level and look and see if they've spoken at other places and see if they have a video that you can watch and stuff like that. It takes a little effort, but yeah, you can find it. There.
Ask the women, you know?
Ask the women. Yeah. Do you know somebody that you think would be great for, to talk to us or yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, where do you think organizations are missing the point when it comes to diversity? And we all know there is data. We all talk about diverse teams perform better, but still we're not there. From a corporate level, what do you think companies are missing or not getting it?
I think that, um I don't know, it's a little bit like my speaking example right now, like, sometimes you just have to do the homework and look around. I do think that the biggest thing that I say to people, especially when it comes to building your team, right? So hiring and bringing people in is like, there's gonna be a variety of different roles and a different and, set of experiences and skills that you're gonna be looking for. You need to be, looking at the entire pool of intellectual capital, not just the one that's the closest to you and the most convenient for you to hire, right? So that's one thing I would say, right? Like you aren't necessarily going to find great women candidates if you only ask for recommendations from the guys in your organization. No, no shame on the guys. Some guys will recommend women, but people tend to recommend like tends to recommend like, right? And so sometimes you have to like recognize that and go find other sources of talent and try and understand them, pull them in, see how they would fit in, see what they bring to the table, etc. So, and the other thing I'm going to say is, there's a ton of research. E- that kind of diversity of perspective definitely delivers better results, right? But when you have a really diverse team, you also have to really work on team cohesion, right? And so it brings some challenges, but it brings big benefits if you do it right.
I 100% agree. I think, I was talking with someone the other day, and they wanted women they wanted to hire women. They really wanted to support bringing in working mothers. And so new mothers, they wanted to kind of find ways to hire more working mothers. And then the job description, when I started talking to them, they wanted this role to travel back and forth across 2 states. And I'm like, bingo, like I just don't understand. And I think this is really what the crux of the issue is. It shouldn't just be a tokenism or like a checklist item that, yeah, we're doing it. We want to hire more women. We're going to interview. But then the systems that you have in place to support, to help women thrive, or just folks from diverse backgrounds thrive, doesn't exist in companies.
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, I don't really want to dunk on people on either side. There are real challenges here, right? So, yes, to the extent that an organization provides those supports, it always helps, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Absolutely. And it goes beyond the ERGs.
and one would wonder, like, maybe the fathers in your organization could use some of that support too.
100%. 100%. Awesome. I wanted to kind of talk about this topic, and that is AI. And there is a lot of conversations and fear, or just doubt, or maybe there is this lack of clarity on how you see the role of, I think, especially when it comes to product management change. And the number one question that we typically get to hear is AI going to take the jobs of the PMs? What is your take on that, Elizabeth?
So I am, not going to sit here and tell you that I'm an expert on this, but we are in the process of rolling out a podcast series on AI. And so I've had the opportunity to speak to quite a few people who are either experts in the field and working in AI product management today, and developing products with it, et cetera. And the thing that I've heard over and over and over from them is the tendency is for people to say, well, I need to learn everything about the technology. Like I need to be an expert in the technology, and that'll make me a better PM. And what I've heard from people is actually the opposite. Like you need to learn the basics so that you can communicate effectively with your engineering team, with your data science team, et cetera. But it's their jobs to be the technology expert. And your job is really to be the expert on the customer, A, and what is the problem that we're solving exactly here? And how will we know if we solved it, right? And so what I've really seen come up is like the best thing you can do is be a really good product manager and have those really good product skills. And that is the biggest thing that you're bringing to the table. It's helping the team focus on what is the problem that we're solving here? How will we know when we solved it? What is that doing for customers? Is the customer's voice in here? And so it kind of surprised me, but then once I heard it, I was like, yeah, well, of course. Kind of obvious, but not. So, yeah. So be a really good product manager. Lean in strong on your product management skills.
I would, again, wholeheartedly agree to this. I think this is like like it's a everyday conversation that I have. And again, in PM Dojo, like this is one thing that I always say, completely aligned with what you're saying, Elizabeth. You have to become a good PM first, a good product leader first. AI is the technology it enables, right? And most of the time, your users and customers are going to be completely oblivious to whether what they're seeing and experiencing and using the product, whether that's has any AI baked into it. Some of the techies might be able to make those assumptions, but it doesn't matter. And tomorrow there might be another technology that comes in, right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Perfect. Any parting thoughts, ideas you want to leave our audience with today? I know we had some great insights from you, but anything that you want to leave the audience with?
I think the one thing that I really want to leave people with is I get this all the time where people will want to talk to me, right? And I'm like, great, okay, I'm happy to talk to you. But then they don't know what they want to ask me
Yeah.
for. They're not clear on what it is they want. I think there are a lot of people in the industry, women in particular, who want to help other women, but they're busy. Like, make it easy for them to help you. So that would be the thing that I would really say, like, know what it is that you want and know what you want somebody to do to help you, right? If you can be very clear about that, people most of the time will help you and do that. But don't ask them to figure out what it is that you need, right?
Love
That's
it.
your job.
I love it. I love it. Know your audience, make it easier for them to say a yes to you.
Yes, exactly.
And
Right.
don't shy away from reaching out.
No. Don't shy away. That is a big thing that I have learned too, is like the vast majority of people, they want to help you. They're perfectly happy to help you, but just make it easy for them to help you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's one question that's come, Elizabeth, that I just wanted to maybe take some time to ask you. It actually came on my local message here. And that was, how was it like when you started working in Apple and the startups? How did you have the courage to actually go and ask what you wanted?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know the answer to that question. I mean, off the top of my head, what I want to say is naivete. Um, you know, I think one of the things that I discovered, especially working with engineers, is like they are really happy to share every detail with you, kind of overshare sometimes. Like there were definitely times when I would be like, okay, I got the concept. I don't need any more now. But most of the time, people are happy. Again, most of the time, people are happy to help. Um, I think I just sort of blustered into it, to be honest with you. And people who know me probably will laugh to hear me say that because they'll be like, "Yeah, that fits with your personality." So, um, but
Enough. Fair enough. Awesome. I'd like to invite our audience to ask any questions to Elizabeth. So if you have any questions, put them on the chat, and we can spend some time in answering them. Just going to be looking at our chat right now, seeing if there are any questions. Anyone?
it's awesome that I'm so clear. Well, I could talk to you a little bit about things that we're doing this year and things that I think are important this year. I
Yes.
mean, one of the things that I guess I wanted to say to people who are job searching is I think that the way that we post and apply for jobs today is really hard to deal with. It's like built and set up to deliver a lot of rejection
Mhm.
all the time. Um, it's a little bit like the college application system. Like, now it's like 10 million people apply, so only 5 people are going to get it. So a lot of people are going to get a lot of rejection right away, right? And so I just want to kind of give a shout out to Phil Terry and the stuff that he's doing in terms of job search councils and never his book Never Search Alone, because I think that working in teams really gives people a lot of that emotional support that you need when you're going through that process, and also really encourages you to use a lot of the product tools to think about what the job is that you want and that you're really looking for, and to get feedback from people who know you. So that's one thing that I would say to people who are looking for jobs, right? Like, don't get discouraged by the rejection. Try and get in a group that will support you through that process. Use your product tools to find the right thing that you want. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's great advice. I personally like that book as well, and I know that there's so many people who are part of that community. So it's perfect. It's about really, as the book suggests, you have other people that you can connect with, and I think share stories so that you also don't feel like you're doing this alone and you're the only one who's getting rejections. Questions are coming, Elizabeth. So I'm going to start. I think Susan asks, do you have any advice that is different for women working in profit versus non-for-profit sector? Or does the advice you have apply for all women, for women to apply to all jobs?
I think by and large it applies to all jobs. Um, yes, there are differences between for-profit and nonprofit, um, but I don't think they're as big a difference as people think. Um, yeah. I mean, I will say when I first stepped into nonprofit, it was a bit of a period of adjustment for me because I think I was very trained in the like, everything's a competition. We're going to kill the competition, And I had to let go of that because you do find when you're in nonprofit that you're much better off partnering with people and being collaborative than seeing anything as specifically competitive.
So it's
But
not a winner versus loser.
yeah, that analogy, while it may be true, is not necessarily helpful.
Mm,
Yeah.
awesome. How can I better demonstrate? So, this is Daniela. How can I better demonstrate credibility to recruiters or hiring managers during my job search? I only have 2 years of product experience, and most jobs are asking for at least 5 years.
Yeah. Poof. Daniela, I feel your pain on this one. I think the thing that maybe I would recommend, and I may not be the best person to give you a recommendation on this front. I mean, maybe the thing to do is to find some recruiters and ask them this question because they'll be better able to answer it than I am. My guess is that you have to, in your case, get past these systems and directly talking to somebody who's hiring. And in that case, I think that you can talk about what you accomplished. People always want to hear, like, what did you do that delivered results? And how do you focus on and determine what those results need to be? I think those are important things to talk about. I think the other thing may be to talk about skills and experience working with different tools or, different problems that need to be solved. So, but again, I think you have to get in front of somebody that you're talking directly to. And that's the challenge with the system that we have right now is that it's really getting to the right people.
100%. And Daniela, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn too. I can definitely share with you some of the resources and things like that are available. I'm happy to do a chat as well. But yes, and I think don't forget the hidden job market too. There are lots of roles that don't even get published. So it really comes down to, I think, increasing who you know who might be hiring, just like what Elizabeth said. But happy to have a chat. Lena, she has asked, so this is a really interesting question, Elizabeth. Have you ever been told a no for a promotion? How did you navigate that?
I'm not sure that I ever had anybody say it to my face. Like, no. I definitely ran into situations where, unbeknownst to me, people were brought in over me. And, um, well, that's not true. Actually, I did have somebody tell me no once. What I really wanted to understand was why. What did I need to do? Where did they see me as pluses and where did they see the minuses? And just some understanding of why they chose someone else. I'll tell you in that instance, I didn't think that what they said was particularly relevant or spot on, right? Like, I didn't feel like the person that they brought in over me had a better skill set or knowledge or experience in the space or really even a vision of where it should go. And subsequently, I ended up leaving there, right? Because I realized that, like, I wasn't going anywhere there. There wasn't really, I mean, ultimately, it was a comment from them that they didn't believe in me, right? And so better to know that than to not know it, right? So sometimes you get those no's and you ask for answers and what you get is unsatisfying, but it's good information because, it's like, then move along, go someplace else.
I love that. And it's not easy to do, but I think this is the strategic ambiguity, and I think Deb Liu talked about it too in one of her posts. I think very similar to what you're saying, Elizabeth. Right? Absolutely, it's better to know because then you have the certainty, because now you can make your choices. You're not reliant on someone else's whims and fancies, or maybe unstructured feedback or ambiguous feedback that you have no idea what to do in order to improve.
I will say also early in my career, I got a promotion and I shared it with a coworker and they were appalled. I mean, they were appalled that I got promoted. And that was really interesting to me because I thought of this person as being very supportive of me.
Oh,
And
wow.
all of a sudden I saw things very differently. It made me realize that there were other forces at work that I needed to be aware of.
And this was a coworker.
Yeah.
Wow. So jealousy.
I think it was that person's problem more than it was my problem, but, But, it's just good to understand, right? Like, I was just very naive that somebody would have that point of view, right?
Fair enough. No, it's an important thing. I mean, might be someone from your team too that you may have to kind of deal with if they were potentially eyeing that promotion and you ended up getting too. So, yeah, there are quite a few questions on the Women in Product conference, Elizabeth. I think Ariana has been doing an awesome job in fielding some of the questions there. But who should consider applying to speak at
Oh,
24 Women in Product?
I'm just going to say that everybody should think about speaking and submitting a proposal to speak. And I'm going to say that with full transparency, we always get more proposals than we can have people speak. But what you will get if you submit a proposal is you will get feedback on that proposal, right? And the feedback comes from volunteers in our community. Every proposal, every submission gets reviewed more than once, usually 2 or 3 times, and there's specific feedback so that against a particular rubric for consideration. So it is great experience, right, to put together a proposal to speak. Um, Learning how to speak publicly and getting that experience is incredibly valuable. And it always starts with a proposal and thinking about what you want to say. So I would encourage everybody to think about putting in a proposal because it will be at minimum a really good learning experience. And at maximum, you'll get experience speaking publicly. And let me just say, it's a great place to speak because people want you to succeed. Nobody's going to see you get up and speak and be like, be, boo you or anything, right? It's like they want you to succeed. You'll get lots of feedback. You'll get lots of support. It's a great thing to do.
100%. I mean, for anyone, I did it last year and it was an amazing learning experience of self discovery. So, anyone who might be thinking, please spend some time to do it. And again, Women in Product is just one of the best communities to be a part of for any person who is considering product or already in product. So kudos to all the work that you do. You guys are like, my favorite bunch. Well, that brings us to the end. Elizabeth, again, thank you so much for being here. I am so, so, so grateful for you taking the time. And I see some really common faces. Like I recognize all of these folks here in our audience. And again, thank you for everyone who joined us today. You guys have been an amazing audience, asking such insightful questions and helping me with the jitters and the nerves of hosting my first LinkedIn Live.
You
Uh,
did great.
Hopefully you enjoyed and had fun. Stay tuned. I'm looking at bringing some more amazing speakers in the coming weeks. So you can always follow me on LinkedIn for our future LinkedIn Live sessions. If you enjoyed today's session, bring a friend next time. And again, thank you, Elizabeth, so much. Again, it's always a blast and a learning experience talking to you. And I can't wait to meet you in person in the next few days. Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone. Have an amazing day. Hopefully, 2024 is a kick ass year for everyone. Bye for now.
Bye bye.